What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 415 of Opinions May Vary. I am your host, JR. My co-host with me, Alex.
Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. I got over a little bit of a cold, so my voice isn't the best.
You sound good to me. You don't have your usual rich timbre that you have going on at this time of the year, but you're also doing a little less screaming,
Yeah.
and you're not chugging energy drinks to stay awake, working like 80 hours a week. But it is still October. We have more spooky to talk about, despite the fact it's the end of October, but we're still going to sneak one more in there. Joining us this week, I believe, if I recall correctly, there's a lot of episodes that we've done. I don't think we've ever had this combination before.
No.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't. Of all the times, like, we've all been friends for a very long time. I can't even tell you how long. But we've had these two dudes patiently waiting on a myriad of times. One of them is a record holder, but we've never had them on at the same time, which is a travesty. We're fixing that today. Joining us this week, first off, is our main man, Brett Kelly.
Hey, yo.
Brett, it's good to talk to you, man. I miss you very much.
Dude, it is a joy to be back, without question.
And also joining us as well, back on the East Coast, is our damn good friend, Will.
Good evening.
Ooh, he's spooky.
Hell yeah.
We collectively, betwixt the four of us, there is, if I had to estimate, at least 30 to 35 years of haunting experience.
Oh, I'd say over
if
40.
I were to I wasn't sure. I was trying to be conservative. I was being conservative. And I also I had a funny joke planned because if we're counting me, I account for 2 of those years.
Hey, it counts.
So the 3 of you are 3 of the most experienced scary people that I know. And I'm going to let Alex, I feel like I wouldn't do it the proper service to kind of get into what we're talking about today and why we're chatting with 2 of our best haunt friends. So Alex, take it away. What are we doing today?
I have to blame it on a post I saw on Facebook where all it said was, imagine a haunted house where half of it is just a hallway that leads to one door that says employees only. And when you go through it, there's a man, a sweaty guy, half in a gorilla costume saying, "Hey, you can't be back here."
That sounds terrifying.
And at any given time,
it's the scariest thing I've ever heard.
Any given time, I mean, any one of us could have been that person in the gorilla costume.
Yep.
That was literally me.
But I was like, oh yeah, that is funny. And then I thought about it a bit, and I realized I came to a point where we've worked in enough haunts, and we've been around it enough, and we've heard stories, we've made enough friends, where I'm sure we all have our own ideas for what we would like to have in a haunt, our own haunted attraction. But to spice it up a bit, I figured maybe we'll try one that's a bit realistic, within the bounds of budget and or safety, and then maybe a haunt idea that's just completely insane, possibly magically has an unlimited budget, stuff like that. And I wanted to ask a few of our good friends what they might have dreamed up. I mean, nightmared up. That's better.
One and the same, really, this time of year. But yeah, it was really funny when you had sent out the invite, and I think, Alex, you probably reached out to me because you know that this is something that I've been rolling around in my head for a couple years now.
I've seen Brett's maps that he's drawn out.
Yeah, I pitched like ideas to everyone's favorite one, Pete Shannon, a number of times, and so I have a couple ideas that I passed by him, so I'm excited to talk about this.
Who do you want to start with?
Yeah, Well, let's jump right in. I mean, Brett seems like he's got something chambered, so
Yep.
I'm cool with Brett kind of kicking us off. Alex, did you want to start with realistic first, or sky's the limit?
Oh, let's let Brett choose.
Okay.
I can start with the realistic one first because that's the one that I have, well, more realistically planned out.
Okay.
Go figure.
So, Brett, first off, how many years of haunting experience do you have?
14 to 15, I think, somewhere between there, because I can't
Gotcha.
remember exactly
Gotcha.
Well, no, I'll say 15. I kind of tried not to count my first year because my first year I was primarily like an actor, like in a show, where like I judged people
count it.
and then I sheriffed people. But I still scare people in between there, so I guess that still qualifies. But yeah, I would confidently say 14, 15 years.
Brett is
15 total. Otherwise, my tattoo that I just got would be completely wrong.
Brett's one of my favorite character designers, where he thinks something up and brings it out on the midway, or brings it to a house, and is able to work with it pretty quickly. Where I've seen, myself included, where if I don't have a strongly developed character, I mimic someone around me for the first 20 minutes, and it's just what happens. So I really get into it.
Yep.
But there was a nice night. Brett got a brand new mask piece. We painted a face around it. I think we painted some of your hair. He got in costume and like got into a pose. And a coworker of ours like just looked at him and goes, "That's not scary." And all Brett did was like this tweaky cyborg like alien mix head twitch, just this twitch, and like she shivered and stepped back. And because he had like the character was chambered, it was already had life to it. It was the first time you put it on, and I'm like that was fantastic. Okay, anyway.
Actually, no, that's fine. Well, I was gonna say like I didn't know when to pepper this in, but I was like, this will be the first time that I think the Highlanders have had a night to themselves in quite some time.
Oh my God, that's right.
That was amazing.
To people like me who have no idea what that means.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Right, we're playing a show for other people that don't know us. Yeah. There was one night where the three of us, Alex, Will, and myself, we all donned kilts and put ourselves in Braveheart makeup and wrapped ourselves in chains and bats and bricks and literally were roving, the closest thing to a Gangs of New York extras that we were, just roaming the main street, and that was pretty special.
I'm pretty upset that I never got to witness that.
This,
but,
that was so good.
Also, it was the same day as the Dias de los Muertos. So there was there was us, and there was also like a pack of Sugar Skull people rolling around too.
Yeah. Oh man, magic. But yeah. So sorry, this is what happens when you bring up Peach in. He just evokes the best of us. But yeah, so I guess starting off. Oh, we'll start off with the realistic one that I have that, in theory, I think that I could build if just given enough time and where finances were not necessarily an issue.
Mm-hmm.
It is very reminiscent of like a combination indoor-outdoor. So it is primarily outdoor, but you'd be able to build structures that are in the outdoors that would simulate indoors at specific points. But the name of this one is called Rapture Family Farmstead. And if people were upset by the religious association, you could literally just rebrand it as Hatchet Family Farmstead. But then I actually just said
welcoming
Harmstead, and now that's amazing.
I want a Harmstead.
But yeah, so the concept or the pitch of it is that like, because the thing with most haunts is that you really want to have like a good hook or like a concept. So the concept for this is that it is a several generations owned family farm that has been taken over by cultists, and for some reason they can't seem to get it under control, and these cultists end up summoning demons that take over the farm. And it's pretty much like, so that's kind of like the overall theme of what this would be. And there are 9 scenes that I have set up. So that'd be 9 like areas that you'd be able to go in and be like, oh, okay, I see what this is. And then I can break it down into the driveway, which is the intro. You'd like, whatever the driveway is, you'd come up. You would have a state trooper and an inspector there, and they would be your people to give you the rundown on what's going on, to like feed you the story, being like, thank God you guys came. You're our backup. You guys are here to document what's going on in this farmstead, and bring us back with the information that you have, so that we can go in and help with whatever. So you go up through the driveway after getting your intro statement. You go in through the house, the Rapture family house, which would be a mild interior, and you would see Ma and Pa Rapture, and they have either murdered everyone in their family or they have been possessed by these demons, and they're kind of screaming. So you'd go through the kitchen, and like, you'd see a radio with like demonic messages playing over the audio, like, the old timey radio and type of stuff. I'll kind of speed things up too, but you'd go through from the driveway to the household, then that would bring you to the barn / the grain silo. So you'd see a lot of crows, or mutated crows, or crow demons, which are creatures that I created many years ago.
Cremins,
yes, thank you. And from there, you'd go out of the barn. You'd stumble upon a tractor accident. So you get you could salvage an old tractor pretty easily. Just make it off the side of the path of where the haunt would be. And then it's ran into a big furry creature, and then all of a sudden you'd see a werewolf. So all of a sudden you'd see there are werewolves in this area now too. Then that path would lead you to the slaughterhouse, and which would then which you'd get a lot of your chainsaws, your blood, your pig demon type of stuff. A lot of your boar and gore. Oh man, that's yes, man. I should be writing these down.
I am.
Awesome. So after the slaughterhouse, that would open up into the cornfield. So you'd have a little bit of a corn maze, and that would be kind of your hokey gimmicky at first. You might see a scarecrow demon or a scarecrow, but then after the corn maze, it would open up into a summoning pit where you would then find the cultists summoning these demons. So then all of a sudden you'd see more of like these really evil creatures that would be made up and chasing people, killing the cultists. And from there you would go in through the garden, which would be kind of like your cool down area, where you'd then have that would either be like the exit ramp, or like your final scare, where you'd have someone like hiding in the garden, whether it be like a stone gargoyle or a stone statue or something. And then at the end of it, you'd either have you'd have like your egress type of people working. For a total, you could have 2 people per scene at least. That would be a grand, and then I would want like 1 or 2 roamers in there, so that would be a grand total of 18 actors total. So not pretty standard. I can imagine going through this whole thing would probably take about 15 minutes, 20 tops, but I would say it'd probably be like 15 minutes, probably as long as it's taking me to explain this. But that's kind of like the whole idea in general for me, is that like having those moments where you can be in an interior space so you feel claustrophobic, but also letting you in the outside so you can still feel like nature. So that would definitely be a place that you could literally just convert it'd be like a place. It would be something that you could theoretically do if you found like a really good haunt, like Kyle has talked about in the past, where you have like the farmhouse haunts that go scary in the off season. I feel like the changeover for that would be really cool. That's the whole thing.
I'm excited to see, and because I don't think I have like a real good, mock like wheat thresher accident, like just corpses caught up in some kind of tractor machinery.
Yep.
That'd be fun.
It'd be kind of tricky because, like, once again, if you want to make it, because the trick for me, like, I think all of us are kind of in the same mindset, just because of how we've worked, is like trying to make that and make it safe for guests to be around, so that way you don't have people like getting clipped. But I think there are ways that it can be done. You'd have like the tractor out from the side. It would be facing forward with the lights, so that way you can see it. And then the thresher in the background would be off to the side, off the beaten path. So that way, in order to get at it, you'd actually have to like really screw up. But like that would be So that's like that. Yeah, that's the whole general idea.
I like to think that this haunted house exists in the Footloose universe, and that the tractor accidents were due to a game of tractor chicken. Um, that's a
Yeah.
Footloose reference for anyone who's wondering.
Yeah,
Starring
no,
Kevin Bacon and
I'm
John
there with you.
Lithgow.
No, all I can think of is just the cat, like, is severed feet just hanging everywhere.
Nice, nice. I like how, I mean, it's it's common for at least in our group of friends, but like Halloween, like it's acceptable to be like, I just picture severed feet just everywhere.
Yeah.
And we're all like, hell yeah, dude.
And then I mean, our friend Kyle worked at a haunt that had a 30-foot hallway.
Yeah.
It had 30 severed feet just nailed to the wall.
Oh, damn it. I
Yeah.
was like, Alex, what significance of a 30-foot hallway? I don't like, why are you just stopped talking and now we have to play the guessing game? And I missed it.
I'm also intrigued because, like, I'm sure we all have a different idea of what we would think a summoning pit would look like, and like how deep is it? Do we fog it so you can't tell how deep it is? And like, what kind of lighting would that need? And does it go all the way down to hell, or is it just it's kind of a hole? There's just a hole in the ground.
Yeah,
run of the mill summoning pit. As you will. Now, Brett, let's say sky's the limit. What would you want to see in a haunted house?
Oh, the sky's the limit. I can be less extensive with running that one down. But if I had ultimate money, like if I had like if I wanted to give like a Halloween Horror Nights or like a or an unlimited amount of money resource thrown at it, I have one that's rubs elbows. It would be steampunk, but I would rebrand it as a screampunk themed haunted attraction. And that would be and once again, this is like a dual name. I can't decide on which one, but it would either be called London Bloodbath or Wrath in Whitechapel.
Ooh, give me that Wrath in Whitechapel.
Yeah, that right? Like the alliteration is almost there, but it's not on the nose.
Yeah.
But like once again, the concept is that you find out that like you'd be walking a small little setup of the Whitechapel district, but you'd be going through homes and houses trying to discover the identity of Jack the Ripper, and then you find out that it's not just one Ripper, but it's a Ripper family. So like the intro is that you'd be with, once again, a Bobby. You'd be with someone of an authority, telling you what's going on. You'd be in a cobble street and stuff like that. And then you'd be going in through like a police station that's been brutalized, where all the Bobbies have been murdered. And then you go through like, like it's very like it channels From Hell quite a bit, to be honest. And not, I think I either I did it subconsciously or it's just because like I watched it way too much like a couple years ago. Probably both. But like you'd have like a carriage, like once again a carriage accident. I don't know why like the accident is a theme, but it's just I think it's a really good vessel for storytelling, where it's like something horrible happened and here's this thing that is no more, so you're left to wonder how it got that way. And then you go through Main Street, and then you'd have like a side alley that you'd explore, where you'd have like you'd find like the crime scenes pretty much going through of Jack the Ripper's victims, and then you'd find your way into a doll store, like a Victorian era doll store, and then you'd eventually get yourself through like a London medical amphitheater, and that would be kind of like the grand crescendo, or like the end where you're now going through a gigantic mad scientist operated killer's labyrinth. Like that would be like the horrors of like of 18th century medicine. And then you'd go through, and then you'd find Jack Ripper, and you'd find like all of his acolytes and all the people that kind of helped him go through everything. But yeah, it'd be like, in order to make it right, like I would make it like, oh, you're constantly on hand-laid cobblestone walks. That way you would never feel like you'd never get the sense of feeling like you're outside. You would feel like you're literally like transported to that area. And if you were to walk inside a building, it would be like a fully built building, electricity, like just all of the bells and whistles that would need to be in place to make it sell. Like, because that's something, that idea for me is very conceptual in the way that you can't like half cock it. You have, like, because it's, you can't fake cobblestone pathway or whatever, or you can't fake like a gigantic building or an amphitheater, or like, the mechanical apparatuses that would be attached to people that you would see throughout the area and stuff like that. So, but yeah, that's what that is. Wrath in Whitechapel. That's kind of like the unbridled imagination idea.
Would it be more of a like a haunt idea with a pop-out scare, or would it be almost like an escape room but the size of a city block?
I would want it to be more of a classical haunt, but with enough story elements that you would definitely feel like you are unveiling and you are discovering things the further you go. But not necessarily in an escape room type of way. Like there would be clues, but like, or there would be like, the scenes would tell the story, I guess is the best way to describe it. Like it wouldn't force you to have to make decisions.
Yeah.
But like near the tail end of it is where, like, I don't know. This is going to sound like a weird comparison, but I feel like it would visually, and the way that the tone would shift, it would be very comparable to something like A House of a Thousand Corpses, where it plays like a very traditional slasher type horror film, and then the last 10 minutes are just insane, where you're like, what is even happening?
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's where like the 180 twist or 540 twist would even happen. Because like, it's very Victorian, which would not lend itself to steampunk really, like, because but we're not going to get into that, but the things that would make it steampunk would be the horror aspects being included in it in the last 2 or 3 scenes, which would be much more Frankenstein, pipes going into bodies, like really horrific electrocution experiments and stuff like that, mechanical corpses and stuff, and like all that type of stuff. Like that would be like saved for the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've actually been designing props for those for the last off and on, like for like handheld weapons and stuff. Like that's been like a super fun thing I've been doing when I have like free time, or if I can't sleep and I just need to do something, I'll just scrawl those out. And scene. Yeah, how'd I do for time? Hopefully I didn't drone on for too long.
Not bad.
It took exactly the amount of time that it required
Oh, good.
to lay out that masterpiece of terror from Brett's brain.
Well, excellent. So if any investors are listening,
possibly you. Now, I admittedly, like I mentioned at the beginning, I don't have a whole lot of haunting experience. I say it every single year when we talk about scary stuff, and I tell the same like 3 stories because I don't have a whole lot to talk about when it comes to the actual act of scaring people. But I will say, real quick, like if I were to give my answers, like for kind of run of the mill, and then also sky's the limit, like I'm gonna rip mine from sources because they're ideas that are better than anything that I could come up with. And I'm just going to steal them. So you may have seen this one on it circulated on Reddit and on Twitter, most likely on Facebook. If it's been on either of those, then it also means that it's been on Facebook. Have you seen the post with the person who talks about their ideal haunted house is like, it's really lame. It's like super lame and not scary at all. And then when you get to the exit, you walk out and like you think you're done with the haunted house, but that's where the actual haunted house starts. And like,
ooh,
right, like it takes you out of your element, because like when you're in a haunted house, like it's one thing, like especially if you're the little douchebag kid with his friends, who makes it their mission to try and humiliate the actors, just trying to give other people a good time.
Yep.
We've all been there. But I feel like really taking people off guard and thinking like, walking out of the building, like that was stupid, calling it calling it dumb names. I wasn't even scared, trying to impress the women you're with or whatever. And then all of a sudden, it turns into this horrifying nightmare that is the actual haunted house. Which this actually kind of happened to me once, because at the local theme park that we used to all work at, there was one haunted house that took place in a giant mansion type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point it like goes outside, and it felt like the end. Like I was like, oh, that was it. That was the whole thing. Like, it was fun, but like that was really short, and I'm kind of bummed that it's already over, and I wanted more out of that. But it turns out it was only like half over. And I wound up getting the absolute shit scared out of me multiple times. Specifically by a little girl on a bed, and she just she was so scary. But it was a lot of fun. Also, go through a haunted house with someone who's really afraid, and it's that much more fun. But sky's the limit. Have you guys ever seen the terrible remake of House on Haunted Hill?
No.
Oh yeah.
With Jeffrey Rush and Chris Kattan and Famke Jensen or whatever.
Yeah.
As bad as that movie is, I'm actually kind of a sucker for it, and it also scares the shit out of me. I would love to have a situation like that where, like, I'm in control of everything from like a master like switch room, and like cameras everywhere, and I can watch and like trigger stuff. Because like it's one thing when we've all gone through the haunted house with all the motion sensors, and like here's a giant foam alligator that you just saw retract back into the thing, and the groups are too close together, and it's not going to pop out at the right time. I'd want to be able to like have that like master control room at my fingertips, and in a mix of both actual actors, doing the job of like, obviously scaring people with the human aspect, but also having like ridiculous computer generated effects, holograms and all that shit, just everything that you could possibly imagine, with the push of a button. And I feel like that would be my ideal kind of haunt, because as I've said every year in the past, I'm very bad at scaring people. It's just not my bag, not my bag, my cup of tea. It doesn't come naturally to me. And also I don't know how to yell, so I lose my voice instantaneously. So in the nights where I actually was able to do it. What's up?
I'm imagining having an animatronic like the alligator that pops out, but not at the generic speed that ours would, or that any props that I've seen do, but think more along the lines of like the giant boxing glove that punches Johnny Knoxville.
Yeah.
Like there's something inflates and just like knocks Wee Man off his ass.
Yep.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. That's what I want the speed of things to be in a haunted house.
Yeah. It's something that would never be able to stand up to the test of like of a month long of haunting. It would break 50,000 times, which is why you have to have the lame alligator popping out, at 2 miles an hour, because that kind of stuff will last longer, and it's probably cheaper. And but sky's the limit, man. Give me that control room. Make me God of scaring people. And that would be my ideal thing. But yeah, we get that out of the way. We got my lame.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we got my lame answers out of the way, so we can move on to more fun stuff. What were you gonna say, Brett?
No. I was gonna say, like in the last room in that house, it would literally open up, and then they would see that you were the one controlling it the entire time, and you'd be like, "Yeah, I can get behind that. That'd be rad."
I'd be like, "Rawr!" That's how good I am at scaring. And I'll still have pubes glued to my face, and I'll be in a monkey suit, just living the dream.
Hey, you're not supposed to be here.
Is it required for every person who's worked in a haunted house to have a dressing room that is also a bathroom, like a public bathroom? Because the haunted house that I worked at, it's like, okay, let's go to the dressing room, and it's a public restroom that was shut down for the sake of using it as a dressing room.
No.
It's not. You guys,
No.
you guys never been there?
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Been in charge of there.
Yeah.
But no, it's not always like that.
Well, let's go to you, man. What do you got? I mean, you're still actively kind of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Well, before I kick into it really quickly, your conversation on alligators and things coming out too fast and things getting broken and wrecking stuff when they're not working properly reminded me of a radio call that I got from one of my techs where he said, "Hey, the Slayer demon's arm got stuck behind the wall and now he's just punching the house down." To which I just replied, "Well, shut him off." Like, why are you watching? But I got there and he had actually punched a wall down. So
That's it's we all know Slayer. Slayer was the giant. If it's the Slayer that I'm thinking of,
it's in the same family, but not that particular one.
Gotcha.
They're usually
Yeah.
at
He's a
least
big old boy.
10 feet tall on their own, and they're also usually raised up somewhere.
Yeah, this one would lift up the ceiling. Like there was a ceiling over the room, and you would lift it up, and you would reach in over to like kind of grab at Guess, and then pull his arm back out and put the ceiling back down.
Oh, cool.
But he got stuck behind it. So when his arm started to go forward, he was just punching the wall that it was behind.
Okay.
So it was terrifying when guests were going through because the wall was really coming at them. But
that's really cool. But what if we retheme it with a comic book theme and reskin that so it's a Sentinel?
So thinking about the two questions and thinking about my career in haunt, I've built haunted houses out of literal garbage and whatever we could find laying around from old haunted houses and things. And I've spent a ludicrous amount of money on haunted houses. And I've been able to be at the table to design them from the ground up, and it's really what I've always wanted to do, and I'm doing it now. And so it's difficult for me to say, oh, it would be this one idea or it would be that, because some of them I've done, and some of them I kind of have to be in a 5-year plan where I'll look at a building and I'll say it's going to be this, and then I need to know what it's going to be after that. So every location that I go to, I've got 2 or 3 ideas for what it could be and what's it going to be first with the budget I have. And then when I get a different budget, I can transform it into this. Or is it, this is the theme, and then that theme gets elevated when we get more money down the road, whatever it might be. So it was difficult for me to just pick an idea and then be able to separate it between a realistic budget and a crazy amount of money. So I'm really just want to talk about my dream idea, which came to me when I was on the West Coast, and I just went to a mall, and the mall had been in major decline, and when we were in it, half the stores weren't open. Like the glass doors were shut, and it said like back in 5 minutes, but there was like a foot tall pile of mail that had piled up. And like, so like that company just abandoned that store, like while someone was on lunch. There were lights flickering. There were, one of the big box stores was going out of business, and it only had a few things out, but the whole experience was just so bizarre. Like at one point we walked down an entire concourse of stores that were closed, and we were like, is this can I buy anything here? Or have like people just taken over this space? And it was really scary. And then when I got back to work and I told the people that I worked with about it, and they were like, you went to that mall? You didn't get shot? And I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was actually in danger when I was there. But it was in a very, very bad town, very bad area, lots of crime, lots of murder. So that sort of spurred the thinking that I would love to own a mall. And I don't want like a 2 or 3 story mall, just like in between a strip mall and your big mega mall that you go to at Christmas. The maybe it's an L or a T shape. It just has just enough space. And I basically call it the Mall of the Dead, because Dawn of the Dead took place in a mall.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be a complete horror complex. So your big box stores would be your main attractions, your main haunted houses. And then I would utilize all the rest of the space to make it an experience that the guests could then come to for a full night. So you would charge an admission to get into the complex, and then everything within it, aside from, retail and food and upsells, would be there for your taking. So you could get in line for the haunted houses. You could use the smaller stores as escape rooms. I would have a gift shop. And then on the midways or the concourse, you'd have your sort of midway monsters. So I would set up a scene that looked like Dawn of the Dead and just have your zombies roaming the halls of the mall. Other stores, other small shops would just be boarded up to make it look abandoned, but behind those borders would be my storage areas for lighting, audio, scenic. The closest store to the big box stores would probably just be the air compressor facility so that it could send enough air into the big box stores to run everything without it being hidden behind the prop making an obnoxious noise. So then you'd have, some of those other small stores could be your costuming. Some of them could be your makeup rooms, offices, scenic shops, just prop storage for when you're trading out houses and doing different things. But what I love about just taking over a mall to begin with is that you may have to make some repairs, but you've already got your fire suppression, your emergency exits, your parking is there, building codes for occupied spaces. They probably have to be rezoned and modified, but so much of that is like my big stress hurdle for this kind of thing. That's already done. It's already in place. So then you could even create like VIP lounges for upselling experiences. You can have the food court be a food court and have food there, so that you can really come and spend from the afternoon on into the late night. You could be there for hours on end and really have an experience and really have an outing for the evening. Themed games. There's a lot of haunt industry builders and makers and creators that are getting into the gaming industry. There's one company that does like you hit the mallet on the pad and the brain has to land in the zombie's head while the zombie's like chained to the wall and moving around. So it's cool stuff like that that I would love to build into there. I'm trying to read my notes. You have bathrooms. There's bathrooms in a mall. So you're keeping people happy by just having bathrooms.
So you have dressing rooms.
Yes, yes.
Not like a porta potty.
Yeah. Offices, back areas for training, areas for actors to be away from everybody when they need, that downtime or that, before we open. And then outside of the big box stores in the concourse open area, that's where you can queue up for each house and you can queue up for things. And then depending on where, what your layout is, you may even have a stage space where you can now have bands or performances or, something going on, so that basically you can create all the different types of horror entertainment that you want all under one roof. You don't have to worry about rain. You don't have to worry about light control. It's just all encompassed into a giant horror complex. And to open this, I would probably do one big box store would be a classic haunted house, the Victorian area style ghosts. But I would have it that you would go through the town a little bit first and like the town green, and you'd cross over a street and then you would go into the house and then exit out through the other side, a different door of the mall or whatever. And then another idea would be a summer camp slasher, after my favorite of all time. Where you're going in and out of cabins, you create the space to feel like you're outside. You could have a water feature of a lake or whatnot if you have a big enough floor space. And then my third house would be the one that I would rotate. So I would always put in a new area for that each year. If, I guess that's where the unlimited funds would come. Probably trade out the escape rooms every year. That's more financially reasonable. Mm-hmm. But in that big rotating space, I have an idea or concept, just one of many that I'll throw out, but it's a house that's entirely black and white. And the first room that you go into is completely black and white. I don't exactly know what the theme of the place is, but basically as you go, the percentage of blood starts to escalate. So the first room is black and white. The second room, there's 5% blood. The third room, there's 10% blood, until eventually you get to the last couple of rooms, and it's just wall to wall blood, all red, bright, vibrant, flowing. And that would go along with the actors as well. So maybe there's somebody in complete grayscale makeup and costume in the front of the house. At the end of the house, they're full on Carrie, pouring blood everywhere. So that, it's sort of, as you go, you start to pick up on like, oh, I get it. And then it's full gore at the end. So that's kind of one off dream idea that I've had.
Why isn't it real?
Yeah, the whole time. I mean, if you're local to us, if you're near us in the northern Connecticut area, everyone around here knows about the Enfield Square, and how it is a barren wasteland with a Target and a movie theater attached to it.
It is so close to dead. It's so close.
There's like Macy's picked up, and there were 2 Macy's in that mall. They're both gone. Sears is gone. All the big box stores in that, except for Target, are gone. And Target's just kind of attached to the side of it. Like, it's not even like you have to go out of the way in the mall to find the Target. But like it's just nothing. It's a couple eyebrow places. Last time I was in there, it had that like Karen's play space or whatever, for kids. It's a wasteland.
You could keep the movie theater and then just play nothing but classic horror movies.
Right. Just play horror movies every weekend. Just you have I mean, it probably costs a lot for getting the rights, but
there's
between $500 to $800 a movie for usual public viewing.
I love that this kind of stuff. But like, it would just be, I was just trying to picture, like, as you were talking, like how it would be set up in that mall, and like just my nostalgia was going crazy, because like we all grew up around that mall back when it was a lively hopping place, and then Hot Topic and PacSun were like, this place sucks, let's get out of here.
I'm gonna go to Full Tilt and play DDR until my feet fall off.
Dude, Tilt, man, remember arcades?
Yeah.
Tilt was called the Gold Mine before it was Tilt.
I didn't even know that. To me, it was always Tilt.
I remember when it was Full Tilt, and then it just went to Tilt.
There's enough practically abandoned malls and actually abandoned malls where I think you could just like step on one and like offer $1 and you could own it.
Right?
Just start
I was gonna be cheeky and be like, oh yeah, you can name them like Sears, but it's like hell, so you get seared with flesh. But I was like, but I don't want to cheapen. I don't want to cheapen like the quality of the idea that you have. Like, I love that concept so much that I don't want to ruin it with my stupid wordplay.
Instead of a Macy's,
there will be a Bore and Gore escape room in one of the small box shops.
Instead of a Macy's, you could have a Gacy's.
Oh no!
That's amazing.
John Wayne Gacy comment there.
He was the clown.
Yeah.
And he murdered people.
A lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of them
in his house. His house was recently up for sale.
Yeah. Yep.
Well.
Man. I love that. Like,
full entertainment complex.
Yeah, give me that.
Yeah,
and as someone who has had to install a fire suppression unit, well, I didn't install it. I had to sign the check to have it installed. It comes down to like, every time I look at it, like anything that can already exist, I love. So that's why I like the idea of the mall, because then those capital dollars can be spent on dressing things out the way they should be dressed, on buying those props that foam alligator that, despite the frustrations, costs $20,000. So it's that kind of the thing that intrigues me and that I love about it, and the fact that they're all across the country, and climate control is a big thing, so that you don't have to worry about if we have a rain out or if the path is going to wash away because there's too much rain or, snow, whatever. As long as the people can get to it, it's indoors. It's fully controlled. You don't have to wait until dusk to open. You can open earlier. And then some of those spaces can even be flipped throughout the year. There's a haunted house in Texas that I adore, and I can't wait to visit someday. But they do year-round ones, so every holiday has a horror-themed attraction in it. And they do like a leprechaun house, and they do a St. Valentine's house, and everything throughout the year, because they just have this massive building that they can control, and I love it.
So good, and of course it's in Texas.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
all you have to do is just become mayor of a town and just make an ice town, or a scare town mall.
Yeah.
Ben Wyatt style.
Yeah, it'll go fine. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like mad that this doesn't exist and that there's also COVID stuff happening, because we can't do it, obviously.
Right.
But someday we will own a mall. And we'll be able to run a haunted house out of it for 6 weeks.
I can't wait. Let's sign up. When do we get started? 2021 or 2022 to be safe. I'll do
if
it.
enough of us occupy a mall, can we just claim it? Because it's really not hard these days.
Like squatters' rights.
Yeah.
Oh man, Alex, do you have some haunt stuff for us?
I do. Okay, so my slightly realistic one, the only problem it would have would be the general safety rules. If you've seen like a carnival mirror maze, they don't have like the 3-foot width, all of them. I don't know anymore. But I was watching one of those videos where like you just got kids bumping into the walls the entire time, and it's just funny to watch kids fall down. And
Yep.
And so I was thinking like it would be really fun to sorry, I just got a weird text. It would be really fun to make that into just a small haunt room. You just have like, it wouldn't need a big footprint, but people they don't know where they're going. It's a little claustrophobic. There's mirrors so they see themselves. There's weird angles so they can't see in front of them. You could staff it with maybe 2 or 3 actors in the middle-ish. And as long as there's good plexiglass, you could do anything. You could theme it with almost anything. Put a zombie in there one night, put a clown in there one night. It doesn't matter. The theming of the mirror maze doesn't have to be consistent. But think of an actor just sprinting at guests, and they know there's like a barrier there. You know it, but they don't. So they think you're going to run straight into them. Or like you take the thing where you got the bucket full of blood and you just splash it on them. You squeegee it off every, 3 groups or some shit. And you got your paintball guns and you're shooting at plexiglass. But the other guys can't tell that. And they're just getting real spooked. They try to run away. They hit a different wall. And that's kind of, you're just making pinball happen. But it's not all that safe.
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
I've been in this.
Yeah.
I went to spy on some competition.
Yeah.
At one of my jobs, and they had a mirror maze house that was a very small footprint, and there were only 2 actors in it, and they could actually control the path. So the actors would go around, and the plexi and mirrors were on hinges, certain ones. So they could open and close the pathway you were on. So you're convinced that you're going in one direction the entire time, and really you're just going around in like a figure 8 or a circle or something. And after a certain time limit happens, they just open the doors up to you and you walk out.
I thought of that too.
There was no way out.
Have like a moving wall where you just send someone through the maze again.
I was so convinced that I was like, I'm not lost. I know where I'm going, and I'm doing this, and because I kind of know the tricks of how to get through those houses easily.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, and I was like, man, I can't believe how long this is. Like, this just keeps going, and I'm not walking into shit, So, and then suddenly, like, this alarm went off, and the 2 actors in there just started laughing, and they like came and they sort of swung a couple things open, and there was like an open doorway that you could see.
Mhm.
And I was just like, are you kidding me? You got me. You got me.
It's a tough call when you know what the trick is, but like, do you want to go through it with ease, or do you want to try and be fooled and like try and forget what you know?
Right.
I got left. So the same place that I went to, they had a VIP experience where you could upgrade and get a lanyard, and if you had that lanyard, then the actors would take you into a different room that only you got to see.
Huh.
Which is a cool concept, but it wasn't executed very well. But
Mhm.
but anyway, at one point, one of the actors realized I had the lanyard, and he was like, "Oh, you come with me," and they down this hallway, and he brought me down this hallway, and he was like, "Stand and wait at this door." And then he like went through a curtain to go tell the person in the other room that like there's a VIP at the door, you got to let him in and do the gag.
Yeah.
But they forgot about me. Like either the guy was on break and the message didn't put, so I'm standing at this door for like 4 minutes and I just got bored. So I went through the curtain that the kid went through to see if he was there, and he wasn't. And I found one of their exit maps for the actors to like learn the emergency exit. And I was like, oh, that's a really interesting way that they made that map. That's kind of cool. And then I was like, oh, and it dawned on me like, oh, where's their fire suppression system? So I was like looking up into the ceiling, and I was like, oh, that's really cool how they hid that there. And then like, what's going to happen if like we need to turn on the house lights? Like, are there separate? Is there a completely separate light system in here? And so I'm walking around the back area analyzing like how the house is built. And then I go back to the door and I just knocked on it. And then like I could hear somebody scuttle over, and he opens the door. He goes, oh.
You're not supposed to be here.
Where'd you come from?
Kind of.
Okay.
That's a throwback to, I feel like that happens a lot. At least with you, Will, because that's kind of how we met, was being forgot about.
Yep.
Way back in the day when it was, hey, watch this trolley. Here's a radio that you don't know how to use. We'll be back in like 10 minutes. And then 2 hours later, we were like, so
we missed lunch and the owner yelled at us.
The good old days. We were so young.
Yeah.
Very true.
Okay. So my impossible haunt idea.
I'm strapped in.
Impossible is the correct term. Okay. It's for groups of, let's say, 4 or less. It's basically a river rafting adventure. Except there has been terrible events that happen nearby. The theme is that there's a war breaking out. There's armies invading. There was a nuclear bomb dropped right next to you in the closest city. Everyone's dead. Everyone's dying. There's radiation poisoning. You have to try and get away. The easiest thing to do is to just try and float down this river. But you can't find any supplies. And the only raft supplied to you is just a bunch of human corpses strapped together. So you have to climb onto this shoddy raft of dead bodies. They feel, some are warm, some are cold. They feel like flesh. Most of the stream is calm. We could have soldiers coming out and firing at you with gunshots hitting the water. They're yelling things at you. We could have mutated people who the radiation's done terrible things to them, and they're wading through the water trying to get to you, and you're trying to like paddle to get away from them. There could be threat of more bombs dropping around you, or have some kind of light show to simulate another nuclear blast nearby. And how is that going to affect you? And people yelling at you like, what's safe, what's not safe? Should you be in the water? Should you be on the water? Can you drink the water? And maybe at one calm point, you realize your raft is moving because one of the bodies isn't dead yet. And they're trying to get free.
Oh. I'm very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable right now.
So the first thing that pops into my mind is I go, I want to be the guy that instructs people how to use the rafts because I made them.
Yeah. That's a good one. Like, there's not much past that. Like, I think when I first thought of it, I think I had a few additional ideas. So you could have you're attacking radioactive people or monsters or whatever's happened to them. You could have your soldier guys threatening, and maybe they're in different states of decay, and that's gross. But you're also trapped because you can't get off the raft. But also, at some point, is the raft going to attack you, or does it not want you on it because it's just made of people? And like, what's the safe point to get off of this thing? Yeah, but that would be super expensive and basically need magic to happen.
The gears are turning in my head to try and like find logical solutions.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I immediately went to like manufacturers that I'm aware of who can build certain parts of this.
So
right. We're like, all right, how do you make a flotational device? How do you fashion it to make it to be able to hide a living actor to blend in with the entire thing of the boat, so that way you could theoretically make that happen.
So now,
feels close enough.
This isn't a completely fictional idea. This actually happened. Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He escaped Hiroshima using a raft of corpses just to get to Nagasaki to have that be exploded by an atomic bomb too.
Jeez.
So, however, let's say you give it 3 to 5 years, you could retheme it and give it pirates and sharks and pirate zombies. And you have to try and get to a local village before the pirates get there to warn them about the threat. And now you've got the Tale of the Black Freighter from The Watchmen. Because he also had to escape the pirates using a raft of corpses.
No matter what it is, I just want you to call it just Lazy River. Just regardless.
Who's the lazy one? Is it the raft?
Just, if anything, just for the incorrect advertising. Like, that's all I want.
Yo, this river is so lazy.
It's Laser River. It's all synthwave.
Damn it, Brett.
Yeah, so that's my idea.
Those are amount, like the varying. Nothing was similar, you know. Like you can tell, like you've all been doing this for so long, and like I said 30 years, like Alex said probably closer to 40, because I was just saying like, oh, we each got like 10 years plus ish. But I have to remember that time also moves very quickly, and that it's not 2016. It is 2020.
I think my first haunt was 2000. 2000 or 2001. So
I'm expecting like another number, like you were like 2008, but you stopped at 2000.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Yeah. So that's 20 years right there. And then Alex is coming up on. Alex, do you have over 20?
I'm not sure.
You're close.
Yeah.
If that.
I started the park at 02, so this would have been 18.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
so there's a lot of years.
And I've helped out at others. I don't know if that counts double.
I count it. I don't. That's fine. I mean,
it shows that
I'm sitting on 15. Pretty. I'm sitting on decade and a half, and hoping to tack on a couple more years after, for sure.
Y'all have seen some stuff. Y'all have had some time to think about stuff. Because every now and then there's a slow night at the haunt, so it's how could I scare the shit out of people even more? I mean, Will, it's kind of your job to think like that.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Actually, I do like the fact that I think like Will's like even thinking regionally, you can tell that I'm a haunter that grew up in New England, where I'm like, no, you want to be outside all the time, like it's totally like because it fits the mood, and like getting over it, like maybe I'm wrong on this, but it's also like. And I gotta ask, this is a more weird, not a morbid question, but it's a weird question for Will. Is that like, you didn't, because where you were working on the West Coast, like you never really got anything remotely close to like fall weather, did you?
No, we had palm trees.
Yeah, that breaks my heart.
Yeah,
Some like,
scaring in 80-degree weather after years and years of scaring in like the cold, and just being like, this just feels like summer and sweat and like,
yep.
balmy nights sometimes.
Jeez.
It's a completely different aspect.
Mm.
Everybody there was used to it, and it actually created a different understanding of scaring for me because I had to change what I knew. People weren't already bundled up and shivering and on the defense. They were just kind of hanging out in sandals and flip flops. And like, it really changes the mood. And I had to change the way that I was thinking about scaring because I didn't have the spooky fall atmosphere to bolster everything happening around me to begin with.
Mm.
It was literally like in Halloween when they said, "Oh, this takes place in fall, but we filmed it in where there isn't fall, so let's put 8 yellow leaves on the ground and call it fall." But you watch the movie and you come from New England and you're like, "That's not fall. I can see blades of grass."
Yeah.
Well, even just knowing the fact of what scene you're in, and you could go, oh, I could get him nervous if I just shuffle through the leaves on the ground this way.
Yep.
And they'll be like, oh no. And they don't have to see me yet. Just knowing that there's something shuffling over there because we can hear leaves on the ground crunching. And then to realize like, oh yeah, you don't have that. It's not over there.
Yeah.
The chill weather helped me endure many nights because you'd just be like, oh, I burn myself out from scaring. Well, I'm just gonna stand here for a little while,
cool down,
and I'll cool down. I'll stop sweating, and then I'll reinvigorate. But like, I can't even fathom the idea of going as hard as I used to in 80-degree weather. I do not think I would have to adapt. I would have to do things drastically different, wildly different.
When I would go out in the gargoyle that I had, which is like a full head towel covered face, latex hands, everything. When I would take the thing off, it would make a like noise, and then I could fill a cup with sweat that would just pour out, and the my leadership team would be the unfortunate ones who would have to help me get out of it usually. So they knew that they had to like stand back or else it would like get on their shoes. It was so sweaty.
Oh my God.
I gave Brett a compliment earlier, and it would be unfair if I didn't throw one to Will too. We were in a specific attraction and Will was helping out. I don't think you had to at the time because you had your promotion, and one of the other big bosses came through and was like, "Oh, you need this thing to be louder, and you want a chainsaw, or you need extra stuff." And Will just goes, "You stand here," and Will finds the perfect shadow, just stands and shit. He's not crouching, he's not hiding, he's just standing blatantly where people can't see him, but he just spotted the lighting correctly. And like the group comes by, he steps out. And didn't have to jerk, didn't have to jump, didn't have to like really put a lot into it. And he had like his lines weren't too long, less than a sentence, and everyone freaked out and ran. And then Will went back to the boss and like kind of shrugged and was like, "That's it. I don't need anything, right?" And the boss is like, "No, I guess you don't." And I was like, "Okay, thanks, bye."
Little things, man. It's a little what everyone relies, too many people just rely on the chainsaw and the loud noise and I'm going to smash this shovel into the ground. But like, there's a subtle art form to just being able to scare the shit out of someone using shadows in your voice. It's
there really is a science to it. You have to have a balance because the loud noise is going to get one person and not the next. So if you vary it, you're going to better your chances of scaring your entire guest population.
I'm getting way off track. We're just talking art of haunting now. But one of our good friend Milta's, one of her favorite tips was go into your haunt when it's daylight out. If it's an indoor one, be in the daylight, go into your haunt and look around. If you know your rooms, you could spot what you can't see because your eyes haven't adjusted yet. If you're in for a haunt for too long, you've adjusted, you could see all the nooks and crannies and corners and where the good shadows are. But if you go in with eyes that haven't adjusted yet, you could spot what the guests won't see as well, and that's where you can go hide. And I was like, I've never thought of that. I'd never ever thought of that.
Yeah.
Man.
I could go another week talking about this stuff.
Same.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Same.
Yep. It was like an exasperated sigh of like, I guess we have to end soon.
Huh.
Yeah, we're at
Because
an
it's
hour.
also like I want to take full advantage of being able to talk to, my best friends, and unfortunately I haven't been able to see either of you in a very long time. And
I feel like, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, scaring this year or just the spooky season in general has been significantly different. I carved the pumpkins and we watched Addams Family and all that stuff, but it's more tame this year, and everyone's kind of like, can you go trick or treating? Like, how do you do? Can I throw candy?
Candy cannon.
Just a good old cannon. But I don't know. I think being able to talk about it like this has, while it makes me sad and nostalgic, it also kind of scratches the itch a little bit. So hopefully people listening who are fans of spooky stuff or haunting or going to haunts or anything like that, hopefully this helped, at least a little bit. Maybe
in a perfect world, I feel like this would be a conversation we would all be having at Denny's or Red Robin or something like in April.
Right. Right. Exactly. So here's to next year. Hopefully we'll be able to resume the haunts and the spooky stuff and all the good things that come along with the chilly weather and the sun setting earlier. But guys, I got to say thank you. It was a blast talking with the both of you again. It has been too long. We need to do it again sometime. I think this record, or this episode, is near a record for the shortest notice getting 4 people together to record a podcast episode in history. But this was great, guys. So, gentlemen, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
No, thanks for having us. I mean, a joy as always, as I said.
We're not done just yet. I liked the topic and enjoyed what we've done so far so much that I pitched this to a few more of my friends who I've worked with and seen what they can do and are also familiar to the show. So we also have our good friend Jess, who's been on a bunch of our shows, usually with Kineticon recaps or the Rhode Island Comic Con recaps, or just to talk about Pokemon or anime. She has some good ideas for us. We also spoke with Ashley, who I've worked with for a very long time at our local theme park. And she grew up to eventually run and supervise a few of the haunted houses herself and become my boss as time goes by. So we get to hear some of her ideas and what she has to say. And then we wrap it up with our good friend John, who's been on countless episodes. And I don't think we've missed an October season without him in the past 4 or 5 years or so. He also helps us talk about toys and comics and things like that. So we'll also be hearing from Jess, Ashley, and John. Okay, Jess, tell me about your idea.
Okay, so the one thing I want most in life ever is a haunted pirate ship spooky attraction. I definitely imagine in my head, like, you approach what appears to be a giant ship that is like damaged, sea-worn. I want barnacles on the outside. I wouldn't mind a giant squid or octopus on the outside. Like, that would be super cool. Entry, I think it would be either cool to enter through like a busted hole at the bottom, or like from like the actual like upper cabin area. And as for like when you get inside, I just want this whole thing to have this constant sense of rocking, and whether that be implemented by like actual like shifting or like optical illusions through like the walls or the portholes, I think that would be super cool. I also want like people to look out like the outside any kind of like porthole and just see like the ocean. Like, even though you approach it, it's not in the ocean, but I want you to feel like you're at the bottom of the ocean. Like, you see things swim by, stuff like peeps at the window. Like, I just want it to be eerie and like a little dark, like a little hard to see, but not like the actual ocean.
Have you ever been in one of those tilted cabins where it's all just an illusion? It's you feel like it's everything's level and straight, but like billiard balls roll backwards and everything looks like it's fine, but it's about to fall over at any moment.
I actually have not. I've definitely been on like various like rides that use illusions to make you feel like you're moving around.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I want. Like something like a tilted room where it just feels like you're gonna like slip over or stuff sliding around.
Mm-hmm.
I also like want the ambiance to just like be creaky, be leaking. I want to hear like sounds of water, like water dripping down the walls, water dripping from the ceiling. Like I want people to leave this kind of damp. Like I want it to smell like the ocean, but also like rotten wood. Like maybe a little bit of like funky, like ocean funk.
Yeah.
But like mostly like rotting wood. And for like the actors, I just in my head I always just see varying degrees of like rotting pirate corpses. Like things as far as like very skeletal or just like bits of flesh popping off. And I would love for there to be a part where like there's damage like up ahead, and like just before you get to it there's like a sensor that sets off like a not quite a mist but not quite a hard spray of water from like a wall, and then when you get closer to have a puppet of either like a shark or an octopus, some sort of large ocean creature that would scare the ever living shit out of you, and like just to like have somebody be able to puppeteer that and have it get kind of close, but only as close as is safe. Yeah, that's basically all I have. I have like this loose concept of this fever dream pirate adventure where I just want it to be just really unsettling, and I like the ambiance. I like pirates.
Would you want the feel of there's like an active pirate battle, or all the pirates are dead except for maybe one crazy survivor or something?
I feel like I would want most of them to just have died. Like they died in a wreckage. Like if we have like a pirate fight, I think that would be cool, but I don't know if I would want a constant sense of like warring between like two different like pirates or pirates and non-pirates. Yeah, I think I want mostly dead pirates. Something bad went down.
Would this be in the realistic realm, or the more like we have enough budget to really go crazy here?
I think that it's something that could definitely be done like on a realistic budget. I would like to see it imagined with like that unreasonable magical budget where you can do anything, because then I feel like you could really go ham on the decor and the feel, and you could probably make it like bigger, and not just bigger in the sense that it's like longer, but you could make it more spacious. So it doesn't feel so much like a hallway you're walking down with like a little bit of cushion space. Like I want you to walk into an area and feel like you could look around and like see the room.
Huh. Maybe
like listen, through would be a nightmare.
Like, oh, this casket of grog is leaking on you now, or like the gunpowder barrels might ignite, and like have a little fire show for each group.
Yeah, like that would be very, very cool. I definitely want it to be, a scary haunted house, but I want the groups to be able to have the time to like really experience the room in its glory, like a little more hands-on feeling, like when you go to an escape room, like you can literally look around and like enjoy the setup and the scenery rather than this like faster pace. And I think you could get away with that if we had that like magical budget, because I think you could have the rooms be large enough that as long as you space them well, the time that it takes for somebody to get through a room, they could move on to the next, and then the next group could lead in.
Well, in the wreckage, you could have a beam of some kind block a doorway until they move it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, yeah, give me that.
Maybe have like an actor or a guide or someone be like, oh, we have to lift this thing.
Yeah, like help, I want to get out. And like you go to help them lift the beam, and it's like set to just lift. That would be dope. Yes.
Maybe there should actually be a treasure chest, but if anyone tries to touch it, they get like a shock, like an electrical little zap.
Yes,
because they're
absolutely.
I have seen some places that have like these there's like pet repel couch cushions that have like a little charge to them, and if the cat jumps on the couch, it just has a little zap to get it off. Because I've seen those used at different haunted locations and for the extreme races and everything. And like maybe don't steal the gold, because this is your curse.
Yeah. That would be, I would like that, right? Because then you're like, you have this sense of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but it's also really exhilarating, and it's like also really fun. Like I also like, not that I would want to encourage people to like touch and rough around, but it would be nice to be able to have that kind of experience where like you could touch the wall and like it just feels kind of slimy, because I like going through haunted houses if I can twice, because I want once to experience it as it is, but once to be able to just experience the like time spent on the decor and the ambiance, because a lot of time and effort goes into that, but like you rarely get to really enjoy it.
To try and hear the different effects that might be around. And
yeah. And like, if people aren't into that, that's fine. It'll still be spooky.
That sounds really rad. I want that to happen.
Me too.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us in on this one.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you later.
See ya.
Okay, Ashley, what was your idea for a haunt you would like to see?
Okay, so this would also have to be, I mean, it is in the realm of possibility, but something that I always really wanted to see was using those, I think it's Gantom flashlights. I think that's the company that makes them. But essentially, they're programmable flashlights that I've used in the past. And essentially how they work is they come with sensors. Each group, or maybe just a guest, would have one when they walk through the haunt, and there are sensors throughout the haunt that will change the setting on the flashlight. So the flashlight can vibrate, it can strobe, I believe it could do like UV, so it would, it's a really cool idea for like UV paint, invisible paint. So like, if that turns on, I've always liked that idea. And essentially what I wanted, the theme that I would go with that is like a paranormal investigator type thing. So I don't know what the name would be. I'm not the best at names, but it would be, I would always picture it like, even though it's mostly dark, because you wouldn't want to light it too much, maybe a little bit here and there, maybe like one small lamp or something, that you want to keep it as dark as possible, obviously, so the flashlights make sense. But I always like the idea of being like a super detailed, like Victorian haunted house, like kind of what you think of traditionally with a haunted house. But instead of it being kind of like blank because there's not as much light, have it kind of detailed so when a guest is looking with that flashlight, they see all this cool stuff, and it almost like distracts from scares, or distracts so that a scare could happen by the actors, because you're looking around and there's so much to see, but you can only use the flashlight. So, and the fact that the flashlight can change really disorients the guests, because they don't realize, they may not notice what's going on, or they may not realize what's going to happen next, because there's so many different settings. So I always thought it would be cool to really like immerse them and when the guest would first come in, the spieler kind of starts it off, and I joke that it might be like a Zach Backen, like Ghost Adventures type guy who's really aggressive and is like, we got to find the ghost and whatever, something like that. But kind of explain to the group, you're our volunteer paranormal investigators for the night. We need to find, I'm trying to find this type of ghost. And that kind of leaves, for interpretation of what type of ghosts are in the haunt. Do you have actors kind of portray more of the traditional spirits and they're just kind of doing their thing, or do you want more of an aggressive demon type? Or you could have both. You could have it like start off kind of traditional and then end it with like a big demon, something like that, kind of like an Insidious type creature. But to kind of give them a story right when they walk in, to know, okay, we're looking for Susie who died in 1895 and this is her story, something like that. But the big draw would be to have those flashlights, and that really will change it up, because I know, I've used them before in the past, and I don't know how popular they are in other haunts, but I think it's something that people don't necessarily expect would happen. And obviously keeping it really dark really does disorient and kind of makes it unexpected, because they are expecting theatrical lighting and all that stuff. But I think because of the flashlights, that kind of helps keep them guessing a little bit.
If there was a setting to just turn them off, I wonder how expensive like a hologram effect would be. If they go into a room in an area, and we wouldn't need a specific actor per se, but we have a hologram floating in the room where if you have your light on, they disappear essentially.
Oh, and I think there was a flashlight off. There is a function for that. I don't remember how long it would be, but I guess it would be where, when you pass one sensor to turn it off and then you pass the next one to turn it back on. That would be pretty interesting. I don't know if like a ghost pepper, not ghost pepper, what's it called? The effect they do at like the Haunted Mansion, where it's like but you would need an actor in that case for that. Right. A Pepper's Ghost, that's what it's called. But
like
a hologram would be really cool. Yes, okay, but in that case you would need another actor. But something like that would be really neat, where you can kind of have a apparition show up. And yeah, you're right. The flashlight would probably cancel it out, which would be really cool.
Huh. That would be spooky.
Definitely. And I always like the idea of like writing something with invisible, like UV paint or something on the walls. So you go through maybe one long stretch, and either it had just, maybe there was a light that was pointing towards the guests as they're walking down the hallway, just on the wall or something, and then it shuts off, so it's really, really dark. And then UV turns on and you see something written on the walls and just all over the place. So that's all they're seeing. And obviously that wouldn't emit too much light, but just enough.
I know it's happened in other video games, and there's a current popular one right now that uses the headset. But one of the tricks you have in video games with when you have it's first person, your control stick, you're looking around, and like you look away from something and look back, and now there's something written there, or like there's Slenderman or whatever.
Right, absolutely.
And if you could get an effect when in a house where like, their point of view shifts or their light moves and they come back into something completely different.
Yeah.
You'd also hope they would notice that too.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes they're just so scared they're not noticing little details like that. This could also work well in like a almost like a performance, like how some haunted houses, they actually like there's a little more time, so you can go in and it's almost like watching a play. Like you go into that first room and they really there's a whole setup going on and you have to kind of be a part of it. That like live in person interaction with an actor, rather than just going in and just immediately start walking through a haunted house. It could be a cool, maybe that's how it starts, and you go in and maybe you have to do a seance or something to like, we're going to investigate this house, but we need to summon all the ghosts. And you could even do something like that where there's writing somewhere or however, and that's how you start off the whole thing. The problem with that is, if you're at a busy place and you're trying to get people through, it's harder to do those kind of really cool moments where you have that time to do a little performance art. Because I have gone through houses like that, and it makes a huge difference. Like there was one in Salem that I went to a long time ago that had like a seance type beginning, and it took, it was about 10 minutes long, but they had a lot of cool theatrics and it was really interesting. But they're only letting like 3 people in at a time, and it takes forever. So yeah, I guess you have to weigh the balance with that. Yeah, and I mean the rest of the house was a little disappointing, but that part I do remember, where they must have had a gag where the room's supposed to spin, look like it's spinning, and it was pretty convincing. But it kind of is a cool way to start a house like that, because you feel like you're really involved, and you have that moment of like, now you're kind of invested in going through this house because you had that like cool mini play right at the beginning. And I think that could really work with an idea like this, because then you can kind of lean into, okay, you have your flashlight and maybe all the lights go out at the same time, and you're like, okay, you have your flashlight, you have to find little, whatever the ghost is you're hunting for, and maybe the ghost is actually the demon at the end, and that's the big finale scare, something like that. But I always thought that would be a really neat idea. I mean, it was kind of when Paranormal Activity was really, because that's when I was kind of thinking about it, when Paranormal Activity and those type of movies and stuff were really popular. And they kind of died off a little bit, but I think now, like with Phasmophobia being a really popular video game right now, and I guess paranormal stuff is always kind of timeless. It's just more of the ghost hunting specific, where it can get it's a little trendy and then not trendy anymore. But I always thought it would be, I mean, there's so many, how many ways can you really think about using those flashlights? And I think that's a really cool way to do it, because they are a really neat idea. The idea is great. It's just, where do they fit in? And where I've seen them so far fit in didn't really work. Like I always wanted like the Forgotten Lab, I always wanted to be more of like a ghost theme, because I thought that would always make a little more sense with those Phantom torches.
Yeah.
So that's what I think would be really cool with that. But the kicker is, like, if you had unlimited budget, really detail it, make it look really, really cool, even though that's gonna not be lit. I think the fact that it is that detailed really makes it immersive. Like you're actually at a haunted house and you're trying to get out and you're trying to find this ghost.
Would you want to make, because you had mentioned like maybe the room would kind of spin early on.
Yeah.
Would you want to do something like that with the rest of the house, or try and leave it as the one solid thing the guests have, or try and confuse them more?
Well, I think maybe something like that. If you're doing a huge house, you could sprinkle it in. I wouldn't do it. And obviously you don't want to do something like that in every room.
Yeah.
Because then the gag gets old, or like the gags get old.
Yeah.
You do it either at the very beginning or at the very end. So that's kind of what they remember, is like that this is very disorienting. But I think doing it minimally but effectively is what's most important.
I wonder if you could get away with having them enter a room and focus their attention to somewhere, and have like a sliding barn door-esque wall panel to cover up the door where they came in, and open up a different doorway kind of like next to it.
Yeah.
And just to confuse them, like, oh, there's no way out. And like, while they're looking away, it's
exactly.
Like, isn't this the door we came in? It's like, we have to exit through this now.
That's interesting.
If that's something that's been utilized, and I think
that's cool.
That might fit in your idea for the house.
Absolutely, because then you're kind of right. It disorients them. Plus, but it's just logistically, how long does it take for them? That's more of like, I guess, like a, if you're doing like a puzzle room type house, which a lot of places do that, and as long as you have enough time, because I can imagine, I think it's a great idea, but I can only imagine like a guest being like, I don't know where to go now. I'm confused. And then the actor's trying to get him out, and I guess could push him ahead. But I just know from experience that some people cannot figure stuff like that out.
They're not.
But I think it would definitely fit.
They're not into thinking sometimes.
No, they're just too scared.
That sounds rad.
So, yeah, I always really like the idea of that. I think it could really work. It's just, you know, it's and the flashlights are also a whole, logistical thing. Because if the batteries come out, then they don't work at all, and then the trick's kind of gone. And so, but in a perfect world where everything works all the time and we have all the money in the world, it would be amazing. And then you could just fill it with cool. I think holograms would be really cool, or even just start getting, like, at the end, getting some big animatronics in there to really, a demon theme type thing. Because I don't see a lot of ghost animatronics around. Maybe I've never really looked for them.
Right.
But, things that I've seen, it's not really ghost themed, but, or like apparition themed in that sense. But then I guess you just gotta theme it specifically to what you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
I agree. I'm trying to think of that, and I'm like, how?
Yeah, how many? Like,
if
have you seen many? Like, because I don't know. Well, I've seen a lot of like Exorcist type things, or
maybe kind of like
definitely
a flying banshee kind of deal.
Yeah, that could be cool. That would definitely be cool. And I know those exist. I've definitely seen those before. That could be the cool demon at the end kind of thing.
But as far as like, it's tough to try and take something that might be an apparition and turn it into something that might have to move in order to be, to be an animatronic, to move like that and be like, no, it's, maybe your hand will pass through it, but don't touch it. Don't touch
it. Right. Exactly. How do you pass that off as something that's supposed to be, well, maybe that's you use your hologram, and then your hologram distracts them, and then the animatronic kind of pushes through the hologram. That could be kind of interesting.
If you have like it matching.
Yeah, so you have it laying in wait, and then they look exactly the same, and then the apparition's kind of like a little less hostile, and then all of a sudden the animatronic goes and the hologram shuts off or something, or just passes right through, and that's how you scare them, and then they move forward to the next one.
That would be cool.
That would be how you do it for sure.
It's like, it would be like having a vertical laser swamp.
Yes.
Okay.
You should just be putting animatronics in a laser swamp. That's how you do it. Why didn't anyone think of that? Well.
This sounds rad. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me kind of talk about it.
Thank you for participating, Ashley.
You're welcome.
Okay, John, what are your ideas for haunted house you would like to see or run or work at?
Well, I have two. And my first one is a little more realistic and doable. All you would need is the permission to use a drive-in movie theater. I want to call it tentatively Silver Screams, which probably has been used already. But like you could justify the plot of this haunt because, like all those old B movies have a comet with radiation pass through and, made things come to life.
Yeah.
So my idea is that you could have it on like Halloween night, and like all these teens are in the 50s at this drive-in, watching a monster movie marathon on all these different screens, and that radiation passes through and then makes all the monsters come out of the screens. So you could have people go through the haunt, like each room. I assume you'd need a couple of sound stages to make it seem or just do it outside. Each screen area could be all right, this is gothic horror. They're watching Frankenstein or Dracula, and you'd have them coming out of the screens and popping out of places. Maybe you have a bunch of old cars, already as if they're watching, all lined up. And then you'd pass into the 50s sci-fi screen, and then they'd be all old school big brained aliens, but everybody. And you could do stuff like that. And the
would there be a blob room where there's just a mass of goo coming out?
That could be like a victim. It could be like just like a stationary blob and someone trying to get out of it.
Ooh, that's gross. I like it.
So you could have teens that have been attacked as like victims,
Mhm.
like trying to get away from, and also monsters as well. And I think that gives you a lot of creativity, like makeup wise, because you could have them, in all the ways, all the different ways the creatures could kill you, like vampire, zombie, radiation burn from a ray gun from an alien or
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
Um, to make it kind of like to make it sort of cohesive, like look wise, all the monsters could like be in that grayscale black and white.
Yeah.
But like the teens could all be in Technicolor because they're real. They're not from a movie.
Right.
So I think that would be pretty cool. So you'd have like, I don't know, I think aesthetically it would look pretty awesome. Like all these, you'd have to get some old cars, but like all these old cars, like you'd have a path through the cars, and you could still have the movies being projected on the screens,
Mhm.
but then the monsters would have been let loose, and so you'd have the monsters or the victims popping out from like, hiding spaces, and the parking lot would, I think, give you a lot of options, like hiding wise, different spots, or like, maybe there's like an overturned popcorn cart or like whatever.
It would be like a
Um,
new spin on a corn maze, if the guests
yeah,
have to find their way through it, kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. Just making your way to the exit, or kind of like a horror, classic horror kind of version of like Pleasantville, I guess,
Uh-huh.
because like it's like instead of you going into the show is coming into the real world.
Mhm.
And they're classic movie monsters, and then they want to kill you or whatever. So I think that would be pretty cool. Pretty cool variety of makeups, like your Metaluna mutants, your Draculas, your like classic Night of the Living Dead zombies. I think that would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be pretty fun.
I know
And
there's a haunted house that is out near Boston that some of our friends normally work. I think Barrett's isn't actually running right now because pandemic, but one of the things they're doing is they teamed up with either it's a nearby drive-in or they set up a screen at their attraction. I don't recall which is which, but they're trying to still have like a scary time by showing movies in a drive-in setting and having actors roam around the parking lot scaring people in their cars.
that's perfect. I kind of pitched that to our
Oh, that's right.
group of friends, is like, well, you would need to get some things, so it would cost money, but it's a perfect socially distant sort of thing to do and still be like in the spirit of Halloween. That's awesome.
Huh.
That's cool that someone's actually doing that. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be relatively inexpensive. All you'd have to do is get some cars and some cool makeup effects and get some film prints to run on the screen. It wouldn't even have to be specific. I don't think people would pay that much attention. It could be just like off-brand, like old movies and stuff
You
like
could
that.
almost just replay the trailer over and over again.
Yeah, you could, because I mean, how the haunt experience probably just takes a couple, maybe 5 minutes to get through.
Yeah.
Like, so you could just do it on a loop of like different sci-fi trailers or different old horror trailers.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that would be pretty fun. So yeah, I guess I don't have too many other details other than that. It's kind of like your standard
Yeah.
maze that people pop out of. But should I go to the one that's sort of like super expensive?
Absolutely.
So this one would require significant engineering skills, I think, because my idea is like for sort of like a goodwill tour, World's Fair, to get people back on his side. Dr. Frankenstein is like giving a World's Fair exhibition of his creations to prove to the people that the future and technology and what he's capable of isn't something to be afraid of. So it's kind of like come into this like World's Fair, this like Stark Expo, and like look at all these like wonders of tomorrow of what I'm able to do with like electricity and like so you could have like big Tesla coils and stuff like that. But of course, something goes wrong, and they all of these like creations, which are basically just riffs on the Frankenstein monster, like, and you could do all sorts of different things with this. Like you could, I'm thinking like if you do a more of a Victorian sort of Tesla era technology version of like BioShock, where it's like all this like fucked up like merging of flesh and technology that he's trying to market as like a positive thing because he's insane. So I think it'd be really cool aesthetically because you have all this like cool like just picture the tech that he used in the movie to bring Frankenstein to life, and that's sort of the aesthetic of the technology.
Right.
That you have like brains in jars, you got like different rooms of like him reanimating corpses, or like hey, you could even like bring back your pets. Like the future is going to be great. But the engineering part is that to coincide with the technology aspect of it, you could have like an inner part of the house that is where a majority of the rooms are on a big turntable, and like it would be able to spin and change the layout of the house, so you could go through several times and have different experiences, because it would be slightly different. The order of the rooms would be able to change, and I think that would be kind of cool because you might not be able to see it happening, but you like the sound of the motor doing it would kind of like be in that sort of mechanical sort of feel to it.
Oh, right. It's disguised in the rest of the scenery.
Yeah. And I just think that would be neat. Like you have like maybe an outer ring where I'm just thinking out loud here, where it's like kind of like your standard like spiel room, but then like some of that area doesn't move, so you could have a couple of rooms where like everything's fine, and then then you go into the inner house where you have like all of these like experiments that have escaped. Maybe there's even like a gorilla with like all these electrodes coming out of it, and like it has a human brain. All these crazy like Frankenstein experiments.
I was thinking like a
all these different
Frankenbison or
rooms.
something.
Yeah. The crazier, the better. Like in his mind, like all of this is like, oh, this is where we're headed. This is the future, and like
This is
but
good.
It's all, yeah, but it's all like horrible and insane. Like sort of like what if like steampunk meets like David Cronenberg meets like Frankenstein. So those would be the inner rooms, but like after a group goes, the inner circle of the rooms could like go counterclockwise ones. So like the layout would be slightly different every time. So you could go through different times and like see different things maybe. And so I think that'd be pretty cool. But you'd have to maybe build it on like a abandoned train track or something with a big turntable like that.
So you're not saying that the guests would get every single room? Like if they come back, it might be different.
I think that might be the thing that would be sort of like I would have to hammer out, because
right.
like would it just change the layout of it, or would it actually like now you're seeing a whole different room? And I think it could be done with different rooms. Like if you have the same actors, and like, all right, well now we're changing it to these 5 rooms, and like you could like sort of you have the generic Frankenstein makeup on, and maybe you just put on some different like props and stuff, and like you could have the animatronics of like, oh, this gorilla with like a Tesla coil sticking out of its back, like bringing it back to life. That's like, oh, these will be the zoos of the future or whatever. Or that I keep using that example, but there's like other ones obviously. Like what if there's like I don't know, like this could be a little dark, but like, what if your grandparents are suffering from dementia? Well, just plug their brains into this machine and they'll be fine. And then you could have all these old people like Frankenstein monsters like running after you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think there's a lot of options there. But I just think the idea of like a fucked up World's Fair
Mm-hmm.
Of like things like flesh puppets and like galvanized corpses coming back to life and like, but I think the separation of what he thinks people will like, oh, they'll finally be on my side, and then the horror of people like realizing like, oh, you're just absolutely insane, and like no one will like this, but he thinks they will. I think that's a funny and kind of like you could play it either like straight or darkly humorous,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
kind of like Reanimator or something. But I think that'd be a pretty fun kind of cool thing.
I don't know if it would fit, but for some reason I'm thinking if he was insane enough, would he try and just coat an entire room with flesh and muscle and then start zapping it? So it seems like you're walking through a living thing.
Yeah, I mean, what if that? I think that totally works. Like, what if he is like saying these will be the smart homes of the future? You could say,
it's
like,
it's
oh,
breathing your air for you.
yeah, it's taking in your carbon dioxide and giving you oxygen, and like, all you have to do is shock it every once in a while, and it'll keep living at you. And then you can like hear the walls like saying, "Please kill me." So I think there's a lot of room for creativity with this.
Mm-hmm.
You could even like do like, I don't know, like you won't even have to drive in the future, and there's like a human torso like stapled into like a where the pilot seat of a car would be, and like I don't know, his arms could be like grafted onto the steering wheel or something like that.
Like a Johnny Cab from Total Recall.
Yes, exactly.
But it's
Except
not a
it's
robot.
living person. Yeah, it's a man that's been grafted onto a car, and he's in a lot of pain, obviously. But Frankenstein doesn't want you to know that, so he's like taken some wire and like yanked his mouth upwards so he can't not smile.
and the doc would think this is a fine idea. This works.
Yes, this is absolutely fine. Like your convenience is more important than his comfort. So.
Ooh, how do you feel about there being a scene where he's looking for more subjects?
Yeah, I think that'd be pretty fun.
That could go downhill real fast.
Yeah, like saying like you could have that be the plant in the line. Like you could have them be like, "Oh, sign up. The future is waiting. Like, don't you want to be a part of it?" And like you could like have some shill in the line be like, "Oh, I'm on board." And like, "Oh, just step right up." And like almost like a carnival thing, like where like just we'll strap you into this chair, and then I don't know, like maybe there's some effects of like him being like well, just to prove that my technology is sound, we're gonna kill you for 5 minutes, and then use the power of electricity and technology to bring you back. And like it goes horribly wrong, and he's like a monster, and like his brain is hanging out or something. That'd be great.
I think it was the first Portal game where you're going through these very nice and clean testing areas. It's a clean, like, white porcelain testing room. And then as you play more and go through more and more chambers, eventually like you're in the underground of I forgot the name of the company they're in, but it's like you're going through all these steamworks and these weird pistons, and that's how it makes the rooms change, and you're trying to hide behind those, and now it's getting really bad because Gladys is really trying to kill you. And I imagine like this descent into you're not a guest anymore, you're a victim.
Yeah, like maybe it's that actually a good thing. I'm glad you mentioned that game because it actually has a lot of parallels with that. I think this idea where it's like very cheerfully doing horrible scientific experiments on people.
Yeah.
And like that makes sense. Like there's this veneer, this like waiting room that's like, well, here at Victor Frankenstein's World of Tomorrow, you know, it's all like very like retro, like retro sci-fi. Like look at what's in store for the future. But then you know you go in and you actually, oh, this is how the sausage is made. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That
like
sounds.
they don't have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying like they don't have to keep up appearances once you're behind the scenes, basically.
That sounds terrifying, but also a whole lot of fun. And I would really like to see that, or even be a part of it. Fingers crossed. If a billionaire
maybe
is listening
someday.
to this show, there's a lot of ideas that we'd
Yeah,
like
we
to
could
use.
rent out. Yeah, any billionaires listening, please contact. Opinions may vary. We could rent out Flushing Meadows where they had the World's Fair in New York back in the day. It would be great.
Yeah. Let's just buy it. Just buy the whole Meadows. It's fine.
Yeah, that's easier.
Okay, thank you for those delightful but also terrifying ideas, John.
You're welcome, and happy Halloween.
All right, and with that said, that is going to be it for this week. So until next time, I have been JR.
I'm Alex.
I'm Brett Kelly.
And I'm Will.
And this has been episode 415 of Opinions May Vary. Hey everyone, if you liked that episode, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Opinions May Vary, and on Twitter and YouTube at OMV Podcast. You can also find us on Spotify or on our very own website at omvpodcast.com. And if you're looking for merch, we have stickers and pins available over at omvpodcast.bigcartel.com while supplies last. As always, thank you so much for listening. Let us know what you thought in the comments, and we will see you next time.